This is exactly what YouTube needs, another white guy complaining about Doctor Who. However, none of my friends watch the show and I have a lot of thought, so I'm bringing my opinions here. I started watching the show with the 2005 revival. I fell off during the Chibnall era because I thought the writing was terrible. I have not watched many episodes of the Chibnall era. I know that there was a big plot point during that era, and I think I understand it. At least, I think I understand the plot point and the reasoning why someone would even make that plot point as well as I would if I had watched the show. I started watching again with the 60th anniversary specials when Russell T Davies came back, and I'm hoping that I will enjoy his era enough to keep watching throughout. In terms of the anniversary specials, I thought episodes 1 and 2 were very good. I thought the third episode, The Giggle, was not very good. I did not like Neil Patrick Harris's performance, which is a shame because I'm normally a big fan of his work. Also, having now seen The Devil's Chord, the most recent episode of the revival, I think that should have been the 60th anniversary special, and I'd just like to talk about why for a couple of minutes. Also, just before I start, I kind of feel like The Giggle should have been the 100th anniversary of the BBC special, because The Giggle, with its nominal focus on TV history in terms of including Stooky Bill and John Logie Baird, seems much more about TV as an institution than Doctor Who as a program. Whereas, if you will permit me to explain why I think The Devil's Chord is a better celebration of Doctor Who for the 60th anniversary special. The main reason is very obvious. It celebrates a very large part of the show, and I think one of the reasons that it's been so successful, which is the music. Murray Gold's scoring of the show is top notch. It's always good. I sometimes listen to the music just on its own because I think it's so stirring, and I love that the show highlights music in general, yes, but also highlights the Doctor Who music in particular. I thought it was a great use of the glances to the audience, the breaking of the fourth wall, when Maestro, having just emerged into the world, turned to the camera and said, "Now," and started playing the Doctor Who theme tune. That was a wonderful detail, and I thought was a very good use of messing with the fourth wall. I think the series seems to be breaking the fourth wall more and more recently, and I don't think it's always very successful. I think sometimes it appears a bit random and silly, but in that instance, I thought it was great. I also loved Maestro playing one of the many Doctor in Danger theme tunes, the background music when the drama gets intense, to make the TARDIS dematerialize. That is such a clever idea. The Doctor's line about music being non-diegetic, again, very funny, and I think a very clever use of the themes of the episode. And I could just think, in a special celebrating Doctor Who's 60th anniversary, it would have felt all the more purposeful. It would have given it a lovely sheen of celebrating a part of this show. So I really wish that these episodes had been swapped. I also think if the episodes had been swapped, we could have had a bit more focus on what Maestro's deal is vis-a-vis how they are brought into the world. So we are told that the church banned a certain chord to keep Maestro out. It was called the Devil's Chord. I should say also the music lesson scene where they're talking about tritones was very triggering for me, because I had an ex who was a musician who would constantly try to explain what tritones were to me, and I'll be honest, I would rather let the devil into the world to destroy human society than try and learn what that is again. Anyway, Maestro says that, so Maestro is summoned into the world, and it's revealed that the church was onto something by banning this chord, I guess, which, I mean, to me implies that the chord to send Maestro back had been found in the past, which is interesting. I wish we could have had more of Maestro's backstory in terms of when they had been in the world before. And I also think that this could have been a really great chance to expand the backstory of the human character who is the genius who accidentally summoned Maestro, the genius who found this lost chord. I'm not going to go into the practicality of a chord being lost. I don't know enough about music. I suspect that people knew the chord. I, after all, have heard that the church banned certain chords or notes So people already knew this, but I'm not going to go into that. But I think it could have been really fun to actually see more of this human genius's frustration that his music was being ignored. I think that could have been a really satisfying, I think it could have been a really interesting thing to explore if we had seen him be rejected again and again, and then to discover this lost chord and to play it almost out of spite to summon Maestro into the world. Add a sort of Faustian aspect to the story. Also, of course, if this had been a 60th anniversary special, as I believe it should have been, I think it could have been really cool if some of the compositions that he played were some of the common Doctor Who themes. Imagine if he was pitching the Cyberman theme to 1920s music producers. I mean, again, that would have been cheesy, but it's not like Doctor Who is above being cheesy. But I think it could have added a nice aspect to Maestro's existence that actually one human being who had not been recognized, their weakness, their anger at their lack of recognition could have been what summoned Maestro. That feels like a very Davis idea to me. Davies likes to kind of dive into human psychology. For example, humans wanting to believe in an afterlife is what summons the Cybermen in Army of Ghosts, that sort of thing. Yes, I imagine the reason it was done the way it was is that they are setting up something with the Harbinger. By the way, Maestro, I don't think that Henry Arbinger joke is as funny as you think it is. I think that you could have come up with a better pun. I mean, Harbin is kind of a name. I think if you met someone called Harbin, you wouldn't say that's not a name. So it could have just been Harbinger or like Jerry Harbin and he goes by Jer and then Harbinger. I just feel like you went very thirstful on that one, Maestro, and you should have tried harder. I imagine the Harbinger is going to come back, which is why we saw him at the end, and that's why it was set up that way. But it didn't quite make sense to me that Maestro needs to send this small child out into the world to get a music lesson from one particular person. If Maestro has that kind of influence, it feels like they could have just told someone else to chord. But that's nitpicking. I also feel that if you had this special being the 60th anniversary special, and you still wanted to go with the by regeneration, I can't remember what they called it, the regeneration where he splits apart, which I'm not a huge fan of, to be quite frank. If you wanted to go with that, I think this could have been again a nice way to celebrate music as part of Doctor Who, where say the Doctor was regenerating and you hear David Tennant's theme soaring over the scene, and then you hear the theme of the new Doctor of Ncuti Gatwa come in, and that's when they start to split, and someone playing this new theme is actually what caused the split regeneration. I think that could have been a really cool and fun way to bring that idea in. I should say, by the way, I love Ncuti Gatwa. He is fantastic as the Doctor. He's so charismatic. He is, I think, maybe too gorgeous to play the Doctor. I can't imagine that there would be someone that hot walking around time and just no one would comment on it. It just makes watching the show very hard because it's hard to look away from him. I can't look at anything else on screen when he's there. Anyway, I'll just one more thing I think would have been a cool thing if this had been the 60th anniversary is the 1963 connection. It's a very small thing, but I think that is a nice detail to add in, that the 1963 is when the Beatles recorded their album and also is when Doctor Who started. So again, that link is there. Also, the Beatles have had a bit of history with Doctor Who from what I understand. I mean, they have their own entry in TARDIS Wiki under Oscar winners who have appeared on Doctor Who. That's right. Very, very esteemed company, along with Olivia Colman and Peter Capaldi. Peter Capaldi won an Oscar, never forget. So yeah, they have their own entry on TARDIS Wiki, and I think they were meant to make an appearance early in the show, and it didn't happen for whatever reason. But I think they're seen on a screen at one point. But again, that could have just been a nice way to tie things in. It's not the strongest connection the show has ever made, but I mean, given that they made very few connections at all in the giggle, I think it would have been stronger than what we were presented with. Finally, I just want to end on this. I think this is a very funny meta commentary because, according to Davis, he has wanted to do a story about the Beatles for a long, long time and has never been able to get the rights to the music. And I think it's very funny that even with Disney money behind them, where they can show us valleys full of dinosaurs, they can show us history being rewritten in an instant, and they still cannot get the rights to the Beatles music. And so Davis wrote in an all-powerful, evil force that is keeping Beatles music away from the world. Well done, Davis. That was a stroke of genius. I hope it doesn't summon something evil into the world.